Marina! Marina, where are you? It's time to do the randomiser. Marina, where? Oh, a letter with my name on? Must be for me. Let's see. Dear Doofus, a promising start. I've taken the randomiser in for its 5-year checkup, so you'll have to make do without it for just 1 week. Oh, now of all the times! She knows I do this every Monday. What's the girl playing at? Oh, there's more. I told you this was coming weeks ago, but I'm sure you'll have forgotten. Why do I stay with you? Blah, blah, blah. PTO. Oh. Luckily for you, I've saved your bacon once again. Play the tape. Tape. Oh, right, yes, she must mean this one. There's nothing marked on it. Must be something quite old if it's only available on VHS. P.S. It's not Anderson. Oh, that's useful. But there is an Anderson connection. Okay. Think about whose birthday it would have been on the day this edition of the podcast first goes out. Yours, whether I like it or not, Marina. Well, she's got lovely handwriting at least. Birthday. Now, who from the Anderson universe has a February 27th birthday? Oh, the only one I can think of is that effects guy, David Oh, well, if this is an episode of that show, I mean, that'd be just perfect. I mean, it's one of the most Anderson-influenced kid shows of all time. Oh, that girl is good to me. Well then, everybody, I think this means we're heading back to the late 1980s today for an explosive look at the life of tugboats in the 1920s. I knew this old VCR would come in handy someday.
The tugboat, for its size, is the most powerful craft afloat. And the star tugs are the power behind the docks and waterways that make up the big city port. This is Tugs.
Well now, I am sure the majority of listeners out there are going to be very confused right now. What on earth is this? And is it Anderson? No, but there will be a slim, I think, minority of people listening to this who A, will recognise what this is, and B, be quite excited. This is, as the opening title said, this is Tugs. That was the voice of Patrick Allen, guest actor in UFO, The Protectors and Space 1999. But more importantly, why are we looking at an episode of a non-Anderson series? Well,
to run a fleet of tugs, you have to be prepared to take on any job. One of the most difficult and dangerous was handling the big naval munition ships.
if you've been listening to the randomiser on the Gerry Anderson podcast for a long time, almost as long as I've been doing it in fact, you may remember in the very early days I reviewed an episode of something called Paul Star, indeed the only episode of Paul Star, a sci-fi puppet thing produced by Roberta Lee and with the voice of Ed Bishop. And I reviewed it then thinking it was interesting that you have someone who has worked with Anderson trying to do their own Anderson equivalent and failing.
You're under Navy jurisdiction. Obey orders and wait till they've made my inspection.
I wanted to do this today because I feel this is more the flip side of that. Tugs was created or co-created, produced, directed. This episode was written by one David Mitten.
Hello.
David Mitten, who started his career in the special effects model department on Thunderbirds. I believe he was there from Thunderbirds till UFO. So the man saw a lot of explosions and a lot of vehicles.
Right, orders come.
And that's what this episode is largely going to be about. As the title implies, explosions. So it's, you know, it's a very tenuous link to the Anderson universe, but the fact that there is a significant link, this episode is, I mean, the whole series of Tugs is strongly influenced by Anderson stuff.
They're loading munitions and taking fuel aboard the same ship.
But this episode in particular just feels like David Mitten paying tribute to Thunderbirds and the world of Anderson. Just, it's his Thunderbirds disaster movie tribute episode.
And straight as a row of Marines.
Since it's his birthday, I'm very happy to be here today talking about a
They're not fighting just...
superb episode of a very underrated television series.
I heard ya!
Yes, this is a series about talking boats with smiley faces.
This area now.
I'm standing by, waiting for...
Also produced by the same people who made Thomas the Tank Engine, the original model series of Thomas the Tank Engine.
And don't leave it till I tell you.
Unlike Thomas, however, this is aimed at a slightly older age group. And this episode in particular leans heavily into that. But it's also very strange because this episode deals with some dark, even dare I say it, slightly grown-up themes. And yet it's a show about talking boats with smiley faces. It only ran for one season in the UK of 13 episodes, so I think you can tell probably.
Stack's fleet have got the explosion.
I'm fond of it, but I can also see why this never came back for more, because it's just...
I don't make highway.
It's pitched at an age group that I'm not sure ever really existed. Anyway, I'm sure there are some very confused people out there right now.
I can't
The setup for this series is, we have, it's the 1920s,
You do the...
an American-ish looking port, big city port, and two rival fleets of tugboats competing for business in the ports and sort of working together to avoid disaster at times.
That is not funny. It would ruin my image.
All of the characters are fairly stereotypical. Indeed, the voices are UK regional specific, which is quite strange for a US setting.
Do I have to earn a living with this motley crew?
I would tell you who all these characters are.
We've just about had enough of Top Hat's insults. He's more trouble than he's worth.
Again, I think some of you will be familiar with the show, heavily familiar with the show, I suspect. But also, you know, there's really no point in explaining. Again, they are stereotypes. There's the young, cocky one. There's the fuddy-duddy there, Top Hat. He was my favourite. Slow-moving, quite dopey but well-meaning warrior.
Great.
Sunshine, go to the canal.
It was a lovely cast of characters on both sides. And what was great about this was, although you had the good tugs and the bad tugs, it was a bit, the lines were a bit greyer than that. Sometimes the good tugs could do something stupid. Sometimes the bad tugs could be good or even have good advice. And this episode is very much the two teams working together.
But worth a great deal of money.
You may have also twigged, if I've left enough of the story going on in the background, because I've got a lot to talk about here.
Now listen, you two, towing this lot.
The two tug teams are dealing with naval munitions. There's a munitions delivery being made to a naval tramper. Munitions and petrol being loaded on the same boat.
Silly games, okay? You don't have to be that brave.
Obviously, you don't even need someone to say what could possibly go wrong.
Your job is to deliver that barge directly to the naval tramper Krakatoa.
To know that something is going to go wrong.
Few different orders, ignore him and refer him to me.
We also have another element in this story. A slightly Windsor Davies Sergeant Majorish character,
Next.
Blue Nose.
The Blue Nose told me he was in charge and that I must obey orders.
Blue Nose is a Navy tug. I think he was only in a couple of episodes.
Remember that, sir.
You've heard him going around telling everybody what to do and what's what.
This trip's worth 20
He will not come out of this episode well, as you might imagine.
of toes. If we don't get blown up.
You should just listen to the fact. Again, I remind you, if you haven't seen the show, talking boats, smiley faces, talking about being blown up potentially, with this doom-laden atmospheric score. It is still daytime, so it's nice and bright. That's not going to last much longer. But as a kid, I was hugely into the original model series of Thomas the Tank Engine, and also this series. I watched this when it was first on. Indeed, my mum somehow got hold of David Mitten's address.
Move out of my way. This harbour is...
Before the show was even on the air, they'd released some videotapes, and she sent him a letter explaining how much we enjoyed the show. He sent back an amazing... there was a publicity pack with all sorts of little bits and pieces in there. But he'd written a nice letter to her, and he wrote to me a letter from my favourite tug, Top Hat. I still have all of this stuff. I think it's such a lovely thing for him to do.
Your screw.
And he says in the reply, it was one of the first pieces of fan mail, if not the first piece of fan mail they had connected with the show. So that's something I'm quite pleased about. I have all of the Star Tugs autographs on there as well. Bar OJ. I guess he had other duties that day.
Explosives to them.
But here we are. This is where we get into our Thunderbirds territory.
Their dangerous loads except Zot.
It's now night time. The munitions and the oil and everything else is being loaded aboard the Krakatoa.
This lot.
Attention! Attention!
It's such an Anderson setup here.
Coming alongside. Move aside.
Blue Nose has arrived,
Circle on your funnel and move.
and he's very much a stickler for procedure,
Yeah, you, mister. Move that barge. My load's fast.
order in which things must be done.
Unloaded.
Get pension off.
Our good tugs and our bad tugs are gathered around saying,
Yes.
this is very silly.
Go and draw your pension out, Jay, you bastard.
Shut it, the paddler's right. We're not moving that barge, mister.
And that's a great example of what I mean. That was the leader of the bad tugs, Zoran, telling off one of his henchmen for saying, oh wait, no, hang
The
on.
munitions right.
The old guy on the good team is right, because this is really dangerous.
Tells Big Mickey what to do.
Well,
I mean, it's all done in a water tank. I think it was done in Shepperton Studios.
Yeah, what's
But the models look terrific, and now that it's nighttime, there's a real nice atmosphere in the place.
I'm coming alongside. This barge has to be unloaded. I've got orders too.
There's 10 cents of the good tugs has arrived with a petrol canister.
See about that. Now just move aside and let me through.
But Blue Nose wants to get in there first.
Barge is unsafe.
Do not give me orders. If I want to move, I move.
And I bump that barge full of...
Move that.
Oh dear.
What's happened there?
You dummy!
No!
Well, needless to say, a little bit of a fire has broken out.
No way, I know what's on that barge. Get clear, the whole thing's gonna blow.
And from this point on,
Where you are?
this episode is just pure Thunderbirds. Listen to these sound effects
I still ain't obey order.
Move out, move.
and tell me differently.
10 cents. Cut your barge rope.
Oh, and the lighting is instantly moody and atmospheric. Everything is on fire and exploding.
Still ain't doing penny.
Oh, come on!
And again, the dramatic music. And you have to remember,
On, I go.
this is a children's show about talking boats.
Oh, no, go on!
My engine's cut out.
The whole set is on fire at this point.
Engine's out. I'm going into help.
Don't be a fool, 10 cents. Get out of there!
He's right. Move.
He's got himself into this. Leave him.
Yeah, both Zoran and OJ urging 10 cents to leave silly old Blue Nose to his fate, which is, again, very, very grown-up and atmospheric. But, yeah, I remember as a kid, this episode, all the explosions spooked me. I was far too young, I suppose immature, really, to see something like this. It just
Jay,
shows
with him.
Put him at the back.
the differences, the two ends of the spectrum that this show is working at.
This is a mutiny.
Severe drama and silly boats with talking faces.
Last orders is order.
And that is a pure Anderson shot, to the extent that as a kid I thought it was lifted from Captain Scarlet. Those sirens, that explosion sound effect, and just the close-up of the sirens making that noise.
Move out, everyone. It's good.
The fire has now reached the dock of the dockyard crane Big Mickey.
Just hope Mickey gets it right, otherwise he'll sink us.
He's trying to move himself out of the way. Another explosion.
Big Mickey!
And that's it. Big Mickey's dock has... Oh, it's sunk. The crane has now fallen forward.
Oh, he's done it. He's falling sideways.
But he managed to move himself just in time to avoid hitting the tugs. Too late to save himself, and Big Mickey sinks below the surface of the water.
That was too close for comfort.
It took real skill to make that move.
He saved us all for sure.
He's dead. They just killed a character in the talking boat show. I'm sorry, I hate to keep going back to that, but it's just a brilliant example of what the hell show.
Fire tug won't be much good. Look at that tramper.
Although this episode, I'm watching the 20-minute version that was released on VHS. When the show went out on air, it was shown as, I think, 15. So this episode lost about 5 minutes, and there was a redubbed bit of narration from Patrick Allen saying that even though he was in the water, he survived. Despite the fact that the rest of the characters play it as he's dead and you never see him again in the course of the series. Oh dear. It is, again, one of those shows where the episode running order doesn't really make a whole lot of sense.
Yeah, follow on, Top Hat. Fire at your dock.
I'd love to join you, but these two are in a right state.
Yeah, this guy was my favourite, Top Hat. Very uppity, pompous, and he is wearing a top hat and a monocle.
The only fire you're going to see, I can tell you this for a fact, is the one I will set under your tracks if you don't get a move on. Yeah.
I'm on the point of quoting this episode verbatim, but just listen to those explosions.
The aft order's blown out of fire.
So it's just the same sound effects library.
God, they were really big explosions.
I would recommend anyone, if you haven't seen this show, seek it out, in particular this episode.
It's arrived. What's on board will rip her apart.
It's so dramatic, and it is so much a homage to Thunderbirds. This, you could edit this, remove the shots of the boat's faces,
Dummy.
and it would just make superb Thunderbirds.
Spreading, and that means Puff at the dockside.
I don't quite know how you'd edit it without the Thunderbirds cast, but
Go on, Puff, go!
yes, I do hope I'm not alone in feeling that Thunderbirds is an influence not only on this episode in particular, but on this series. I know I'm not alone in being, someone who's slightly involved with Anderson-y Thunderbird stuff, who was a fan of and enjoyed and appreciated this show. During a break in recording on one of the Thunderbirds audios, several of us were talking about this show and just how great it was. Here's a line for a kid's show.
That's all we needed. The Petros caught fire.
And that tank's fully loaded. I must try and get it out to sea.
Yeah, go on. We haven't had a life or death situation in 30 seconds now. Throw yourself in there.
What's that?
And here's Warrior.
That? Yes,
with the garbage barge Lord Stinker.
Aye, Red Sky Night, Sailor's Delight.
Poor old Lord Stinker has a clothes peg over his nose because it's that smelly.
North, not west. Fire!
Warrior is very loyal, very dumb, but he'll always come to the rescue. And crucially, he has a teeny tiny fire hose on his hat.
Don't know, but rather him than me.
Yeah, all the tugs have hats in this show. No drivers to speak of. No humans are ever seen, I don't think, either.
I'm you turned up. Give 10 cents a hand, he's burning up.
Get that thing out of here, quick!
What do you think I was doing? I'm not here to keep warm, you know.
But the story beats in this episode are very much how it would be done if it was a live-action show.
Behind me, Bruno's.
For instance.
Oh, him who gives all the orders. Well, he won't be giving any more now. He's in shock.
Yeah, Blue Nose is in shock. Is suffering severe PTSD, clearly. He's just sitting in the corner trembling. And he will be trembling for the remainder of the episode.
We've got to try and stop the fire from spreading!
Yeah, try and fail.
I'm taking this out to sea, Sunshine.
So many beautiful explosions.
Back there.
Hey, what you've got there looks far more dangerous than me. That's a bomb, man. Just leave it, will ya?
I'd love to know the thought process in this, beyond just, let's do a Thunderbirds tribute episode. If any thought was given to the fact that this really is not a story for this kind of show. But let's do it anyway. I would have to also assume that there were other people working on the show who came from the same stable as David Mitton, who had also served on the Anderson effects team at some point.
Fast. His lights may be on, but there's no one there.
At least he's in there.
Probably would have been a nice sense of camaraderie putting this together. Just, remember the Thunderbirds days? Yeah, let's do it again.
Can't seem to stop it. Oh.
There we go, another building gone. The tugs are having a very hard time of putting the fire out.
Plain water on it, Sunshine! Stop the spread! Stop the spread!
And now it's reached a fuel dump that Warrior is protecting.
It's going to blow!
One canister has gone up. There were 6 to start with. 1's gone. 2 gone.
Well...
3 gone. 4 gone. And I love that bit. 5 gone. And can he save the last one? No, because the whole thing was just an excuse to have a series of explosions. But yeah, that's a brilliant example of effects going wrong. The model of Warrior there was hit by a huge piece of shrapnel right on the side of his head, and they add a bit of dialogue to cover it.
Can't see this barge doing much good, mister, but you're in charge.
Go on, Soren. Show him who's a real hero.
Zoran is now helping, bringing in the fire barge. They're going to try and put out the tramper because I think everything on the dockside has exploded by this point.
Oh no, it's starting to smoke.
Meanwhile, 10 cents with his petrol. It's on fire.
Gotta get out of here.
Oh, only makes it like a quarter of a foot away from the thing before it explodes.
It's 10 cents. The oil barge. I must have...
The models in this show, which still survive, luckily to this day, most of them, in one form or another, the models are very close to the explosions in this, and yet they seem to have survived unharmed.
Over any moment now, there's nothing more we can do.
Oh, that's it. We've done all we can.
Stand clear, she's going!
Oh my god, it's so tense! It's like something out of, I don't know. I mean, we're sort of beyond Thunderbirds at this point. We're into something like the Towering Inferno. Just the fact that we just have to give in and let it burn. This poor tramper with the dramatic music. No one can do anything. And Blue Nose is still having his psychotic episode in the corner. And there she goes, Krakatoa, with one final eruption from her funnel, is sunk.
To
Just look at the state of the dockside.
Yeah, beautiful.
Could have happened. If Sunshine and Warrior hadn't contained the fire, it could have easily spread to the city. Well done, all of you.
We could have had a city of fire. It's that bloomin' Anderson's fault. If he hadn't done such a good job in the 60s, this dockyard wouldn't have blown up.
Well, well, well. Get a drift of that, will you,
Well.
lads? Top hat, all dressed up and nowhere to go.
The fire is, for the most part, out, and it's now the next morning. Where is 10 cents?
Should have been back by now.
We must all salute a very brave Tug who saved us from...
Oh no. Oh, and talk about a beautifully shot
I know that whistle.
Hero's Return.
10 cents!
Again with superb music. The music on this show was just brilliant.
What happened?
Well, just everything on this show was brilliant, and if you haven't seen it, I hugely recommend seeking it out. All of the episodes are available on YouTube, but I would definitely recommend, with this episode in particular, you have to watch the 20-minute version. The 15-minute doesn't quite do it.
Strange jobs before, but never have I brought in a switcher and taken away a twitcher.
Ah, yes. That's Blue Nose being towed away, still having his meltdown, just shaking his head. He can't believe what he's done.
Bad temper.
Again, this is a great example of the tone of the series just being so dark for children. Listen to some of this.
Sense and OJ right in theirs. But common sense from all three would have prevented the fire starting. Always respect fire. If you don't, it will destroy you, your surroundings, and your friends.
You hear that, kiddies? 5-year-old kiddies watching the show about talking boats. If you don't respect fire, everyone you love will die. Oh, well, that was Tugs Munitions. I'm not going to return to the series on the randomizer. I hugely recommend, if you haven't seen the series before, go and look it up. And even if you don't have time to do the whole show, just watch this episode, because it is such a loving tribute to the Anderson shows, and Thunderbirds in particular, that it's well worth a look. Happy birthday, David.